nightmare. The moral to my story, if you think that moldboard plowing is something that you should be doing for the rest of the time, that means your farm's probably going to go to hell. That's all there is about it. Anyway, I opted for the choice number one. If you got livestock, I just don't know that many people do this anymore. It's just there's no upside for anybody. If you're spreading dry phosphorus, potassium, and you're a no-tiller and you want to do it on the snow, I don't think there's any upside to it. I would not do that. So let's talk a little bit about earthworms, and we're going to talk about cover crops. I assumed, we all know what assuming does, that the earthworms were moving the phosphorus potassium into the profile, or it was raining and moving or whatever, and I assumed wrong. So on the left-hand side of the screen here, you can see the diammonium phosphate, the muriate of potash, whatever, the crystals. On the right-hand side of the screen, if you look at the bottom, there's my little earthworm. I borrowed him for the day and put him out here for the picture. There's his earthworm bitten. Earthworms eat corn stalks and organic matter. If you think for 1 minute that this earthworm is going to go over here and grab a bite of that crystal of fertilizer and then go back over and wiggle down his hole and poop it out, you're wrong. He doesn't like that stuff. He eats organic matter, he eats crop residue, he eats corn stalks, not fertilizer. Now, but I do know that earthworms are very advantageous for moving residue and organic matter, because at this conference a year ago somebody asked about virgin soil. You betcha. I went home and I dug it up on a fence line, and here's the data. So on the left-hand side is the pH. Like I said, we'll give you a handout if you want one. The pH starts at the top here at 6.6 and it's 5.7. So we've got about a 1-point variance vertically in our pH. But the thing that I was really happy about was in the virgin soil. This is continuous brome grass where we pulled this. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen the organic matter. We're at 2.5 for an average. We start at 2.6, 2.6, 2.6, 2.4, 2.6, 2.4, 2.4. The average, 2.5. Now this is timber soil. In my intense corn soybean rotation, I'm up around 3.5. And this data, you can look at everything you want, hydrogen, manganese, whatever. We've got all that info. Now, being at this conference 30 years ago, I worked on a situation called hypoxia in the Gulf of Mexico. Normally associated with nitrogen, but the marine biologist came up to me and privately said some of our issues could be caused by excessive loading of phosphorus as that water comes down out of the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico. My statement is, we are all very proud of being chosen to grow food for God's people. And we're also very proud of the fact that we work every day in our offices trying to protect the environment. Please be mindful of how you spread your phosphorus potassium and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. 2, growing plants over millions and billions of years. Do they cause vertical stratification of phosphorus and potassium? So, I went out last fall. This is at the south end of our property. You can see the oak trees in the background over here. So we know that nobody's been here. You can see the rotten hedge posts, the rusty steel wire here. And it's CRP on both sides, so I know nobody's been by with a fertilizer bucket. So I dug a hole with the spade. It is full of roots from top to bottom. And I took my buck knife and I took it out 1 inch at a time and sent it off to the lab. And sure enough, The phosphorus is on the left. This is virgin soil. We would anticipate this is 100 years, never been touched, never been fertilized. Phosphorus on the left, 38 at the top, down to 22 in the bottom. Does stratification occur naturally? My answer is, at my farm, yes. I pay the soils. Now, on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the one that really, really blew me away. I've been on this farm since a kid. My dad was there. In the upper right-hand corner, the potassium, the average is 562, which is really good. This is virgin soil. Continuous brome grass. The top inch, 838 pounds per acre. I was totally blown away. I've never seen a soil test with 800 pounds per acre of potassium. And we move on down through the soil profile, and we've got declining numbers down at the bottom. We're at 346. So, I know I've been no-tilling. I know I've done some things wrong, and it's a learning curve for all of us. If you're early on, I would encourage you to put the phosphorus potassium in the root zone. But as we're learning, there are people that speak at this conference. Dave Brandt, a buddy of mine, we were chosen by Monsanto when we were in our 30s to talk to farmers across the United States about crop residue management and no-tilling. My question to those of you that are using cover crops, is that the answer? Are there certain cover crops that can capture the nutrients in the surface and then transport them down into the soil profile? Like I said, I'm 66, nearing the end of my career, but I still got a lot to learn. And thankfully we have people that come forward and are willing to share new ideas. I'm going to go to David's farm here in March, and I'm going to speak in Ohio, and I'm going to stop in Indiana on my way home and talk there as well. So I don't know for sure. Let me wrap up here. I've had the pleasure of knowing several individuals that have helped us learn and move to the next level. This is Herman Warsaw. I am at 28 years old. He grew 370 bushel to the acre at his farm, Central Illinois. I got to meet Francis Child. We were on programs together. In 2002, grew 440 bushel corn per acre. I've also had the pleasure of meeting Randy Dowdy, good buddy of mine. He runs our corn heads, stalk rolls, and we built the corn head that harvested his strip cropping this year. He moved the bar up to 521 in 2016. And of course, we heard them speak earlier this morning. Dave Hula, another great farmer, willing to share information. And he set the bar at 616. These four individuals growing record yields. Why? The first reason is because they all believe in putting their phosphorus potassium in the soil profile, not above the roots. They want it in the root zone, not above the root zone. And I agree with it. Now, field cultivating, I'm not very fond of that. But, you know, maybe we need to hit the restart button and then go back to no-tilling. I don't know. I know that stratification is real. I'm the one that made the mistake. This is not a no-till problem. It's because Marion Counter's management was wrong when I no-tilled. And I've got to change. So I've got to hit the restart button somewhere. But this is what we need to do as we move to the future. Either mechanically put it in the root zone, whether it's strip till, whether you do it with the planter, however, phosphorus, potassium do not move. Dave Hula runs the Soil Warrior. I'm looking at a system where we can run a field cultivator sweep and not do much disturbance, and we just simply lift the soil profile, blow the phosphorus potassium on a diffuser so that it goes horizontally in the soil profile. How deep do we need to put the phosphorus potassium? I'm not sure. Is 4 inches deep enough? Does it need to be 8? Or can we move to 1,000 bushels per acre if we fertilize the soil profile from 8 on down to 16? We have moisture, we have roots. The only thing we don't have at 8 to 16 is a high level of nutrients. All right, so here's your key takeaways, and I think I'm going to have a few minutes for questions. Number 1, subsurface P&K. Increased profitability. There's no doubt about it. That's the problem I had. When I spread it on the surface, I'm losing money. I put it in the ground, I'm making money. Subsurface P&K, reduce environmental impacts. I don't want to see it wash off my farm. I don't want to see it go down the creek. I don't want to see it go to the Mississippi. I don't want to read about hypoxia. Horizontal variability at 25 pounds. The vertical variability at 105. My problems in my soil nutrient management program is that I've got a lot of variability vertically and in relationship, very little horizontally. Vertical stratification does not go away. I don't know. How are we going to mix that? Got a lot of fertilizer up there. How do I get it back into the profile? Vertical stratification is not caused by no-till. I love no-till, always have, always will. But I made a mistake, and for those of you that are coming behind us, hopefully you will recognize this is a problem in long-term no-till, at least in my IPAVA soils in central Corn Belt. The soybean yield advantage was 9 bushel an acre at 15 months. It's $135 per acre, and on 1,000 acres of beans at my farm, that's a $135,000 mistake that I made. Now, we all know I'm in a corn soybean rotation, so this fall we prepped. We spread the fertilizer. One plot, it's still on top of the ground. The other plot, we chisel plowed it into the ground. And we're going to follow with corn next year. So, if you would like to hear the information on what kind of yield advantage there is when you follow with corn, then tomorrow I think they're going to hand out a little survey, and you can fill out that survey and say, we'd like to have Marion come back and tell us what was the yield advantage when he follows with corn. This is the plot. You can see there's 20 years worth of fertilizer. There's $1,000 worth of P&K in the surface in that plot. And you can see on the left-hand side there is where we chisel plowed it into the ground. My goal in the future, let's put the doggone P&K in the root zone, not on top of the root zone. We're going to take questions here a little bit, Daryl, I think.
Yeah, we do have some time for some questions.
All right, and before I forget it, there is a round table. Number 11 this afternoon, whatever time, and it's talking about the myth or the fact of stratification. So I'm going to bring the data with me. I'll be in there. If you have the solutions to vertical stratification, please come and tell me what it is, because I'd be anxious to know. Also, on Friday morning, I'm going to talk about combines. Many of you have seen my videos. This is our test fleet. If you run any of those combines and you're having trouble with it, I hope to see you on Friday morning as well. I know you'll be tired and you'll want to go home, but don't. Please come in and listen to us talk about combine. All right, don't forget, I got brochures, and we've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, we do at least have 5 minutes, so
oh boy.
We got some questions here. We will get some mics and some folks in. We got one right back there. Okay, go ahead.
So, do you think if you use 2x2 starter fertilizer for your some of your phosphorus and some of your potash, that would help?
Okay, the question is, 2x2, will that help? It certainly will help. The problem is liquid is more expensive than dry. In a no-till environment, the weight on the planter, I used to use starter fertilizer, and I'm kind of getting my money back. But it's certainly better to put it 2x2 than it is to put it on the surface. Good question.
Right here. Marion, Ray McCormick from Woodward, Indiana. I've got 2 5-bottom plows sitting in my weeds, You give me that $135,000 for them, and you'll be $500,000 up on that 1,000 acres by the end of the year. Is it a deal?
I'll think about it, okay? I'll think about it. Ray and I also, we were selected by Monsanto when we were in our 30s. Ray's been on the speaking circuit as well as David. Let's give them two guys. I don't know, there might be other people. These guys have been on the speaking circuit for over 30 years. Let's give these two guys. Stand up, you guys. And we need new young people to go up and talk to Daryl, say, you know what, I got some information, I want to be a speaker at the No-Till conference. We love to have new people join us. Okay, go ahead.
Did you look at doing any root biomass sampling at those depths at the same time you were doing the soil testing?